So today we're going to be butchering one of our pigs. We've been raising American Guinea hogs. This is the second time that we've done this. Last year was our first time, and we let them go about 18 months. This year we did about 12 to 14 months. Last year they had a lot of fat, which was good, but we don't need as much lard, and I don't like when the meat has too much fat on it, so we're seeing if that makes a little bit of a difference this year. We also decided to process them in January this year because the nights are colder and we can hang them out in our barn instead of putting them on ice. It just makes it a lot easier for us. We'll be putting some feed down in front of them so that they are distracted by some food, shoot them in the head, and then when they get stunned by the bullet, bleed them out. So that's the plan.
I'll stand in the gap with you. This is dangerous. You're shooting towards that.
Yeah, you got
Put some food over behind the cattle panel for these two. Put some food here for this guy so he stands still, because otherwise they fight and move around too much.
Hey, buddy. Perfect shot. That's on, buddy. Stay there, Pinky. There you go. There's a little more for you. You aim a little higher that time?
There it goes.
Get the juggler? Yeah. I did. Not as good as I'd like. Okay, Jake, put it back down. Give me time to expire. That's the hard part. There you go.
Are we putting it in the barn?
Okay.
Yes.
You can sort of see the belly right there now. You can start to see it.
So you cut through the skin and the fat.
Yeah. And then you got the stomach liner.
Right
That's
there.
the
That's the
stomach
stomach
lining.
liner right there. Yep.
So gets around his junk here. It's a technical term. There we go. So see, there's the stomach lining again. Little tear there. So just go slow when you get to that point. But otherwise, it's pretty straightforward. And down here, there's a breastbone. You don't really have to worry about puncturing the stomach lining. Good. Good. Mm-hmm.
Sun feels good. Little mommy, make sure they run their faucets again tonight. 18 tonight. The next 3 nights are cold. After Sunday night's gonna be cool or warmer. Next weekend's in the 60s again. Should be. I think Friday's rain.
Right between the two leg bones there. Come around the back. Switch knives. So this part you go around. So, a couple things to point out here. That's bladder. You don't want to puncture that if you can help it because it's full of pee. And that's his big intestine or colon, so it's full of poop. So you want to watch out for those guys. So we're going to just cut this right out. Got to make sure you get all the way around that. Otherwise, you'll have issues. We'll just pull them up for you, really.
Here's the liver.
What is that?
This is it's a type of fat. You actually can take the organ meat, like the heart, and you can wrap it in this and cook it in it, and it actually adds a lot of flavor and it keeps it juicy, I guess.
You keeping the liver?
Do you want it?
No, I don't. Did somebody take it last?
You said you want the liver?
Yeah.
Liver. And do you want the heart?
Yeah.
Oh, we haven't gotten to the heart yet. So.
Stomach?
Yep, that's the stomach. Intestines are all there, big, small. Liver. I'm gonna get the heart and lungs out.
Can you show me the kidneys in here?
Yeah, so the kidneys are right there. One on this side, one on this side where I cut it with the knife.
And then that's the leaf lard around the
Right here
kidneys
on
too.
both sides, yeah. So there's your heart. Now we'll take the skin off and then we'll take the head off.
Or you want to take the kidneys out first?
No, kidneys will stay in there.
Huh.
We can deal with them whenever.
Look at the fat on this guy.
This one's not as bad as the other ones last year.
So last night was nice and cold and we were able to hang the pig up. And we're going to cut it in half this morning and then get it in the freezer.
So usually when I'm skinning it, I wouldn't cut the connective tissues between the front leg and the main body cavity. I do that on deer all the time because we cut the front quarters completely off and we piece it out that way, we quarter it. With the pigs, we're not really quartering them, we're going to split it in half. So usually you want to leave that part there, and that would make, you know, the leg more like this, which then when you cut it, you're getting that huge front shoulder. And so in my rush to get it skinned yesterday, I ended ended up cutting that tissue, so that's why the legs are hanging down. It's fine, it ain't gonna hurt anything. It just means we'll have 2 smaller pieces for shoulders rather than, you know, like 1 big one if we wanted.
What kind of saw are you using?
So it's just a regular reciprocating saw, but found some good bone blades online. I think Amazon actually had a 3-pack for like 12 or 15 bucks. I tried using like a bimetal one from Home Depot or whatever at first, and it did not work very well. So then I bought this pack and it sawed right through in a matter of a couple minutes. So much better. I don't recall if there's a brand name on this or not. But anyway, they're not very expensive. Just look for bone blade and just a common reciprocating saw.
Stop!
Is it heavy or no?
It's heavy.
Okay, so get it up on the table. Yep. So this is the leaf lard on the inside, and that's kind of your best lard for bacon. So we want to get that out. You can kind of just peel it.
There it is. We got a little more in there.
You want to be careful if you're going to cut any of this, because on the back side you're bacon, which on this pig you don't get much meat there, so we're not too concerned with it, but generally speaking, be careful.
The leaf lard is what's good for baking pies and stuff like that. The back fat is good for frying. It's good for savory things. I use it for tortillas. I want to make some soap with it because we have a ton left over from last year.
It kind of has a soapy like texture, and it's super greasy. So as soon as you start touching it, your hands get all greasy. But it's really soft. It's best to do it when it's really cold, because then you can peel it all in one piece, but we got most of it off. I don't want to leave any extras. Like I said, on the back side there's meat, so you gotta go as shallow as possible if you don't want to ruin your bacon.
So these American Guinea hogs are known for their lard, and so the bacon, we did bacon last year and it was really fatty and there wasn't as much meat on the pork belly, so we're just turning that into sausage this year. Because the sausage turned out really good.
Okay. Next, we're gonna cut this up. I've already got the front shoulder off, just because of the way I skinned it and did it all up last night. So I'm gonna now cut the rear ham off, and then we'll saw the belly away from the loin. So with the ham, I want to get this out of the way. First, it's some stuff. So now there's a bone right here. The tailbone comes out over here, right? There's the backbone, tail. So you kind of want to be on this angle, naturally, you know, along this back H-bone, they call it. Scored the meat in the angle that I'm going to make my cut, but obviously there's a nice big bone right here that's connecting the leg to the backbones. And so we're just going to score the meat so we know And then we only need to cut through the bone with the saw. Once we cut through the bone with the saw, the knife can go down the rest of the way. Saws aren't very good at cutting meat. They make a mess. Okay, I'm through the bone.
And at this angle, it's the backbone, tailbone,
Ham.
and then the ham.
Rear leg. Yeah. So now that I'm through, take my big breaking knife. There we go. Now I got a big bone-in ham that we got to trim all this fat off of, and we're gonna bone this out into 2 hams, 2 smaller ones, because it's a pretty big one all by itself.
The last pig had 7-pound hams.
Yeah.
So about a 7-pound ham if we leave the bone in and leave it whole, which is too much for us to eat. We did keep 2 like that. So if we have family over or whatever, but now we'll take these ones and make them smaller so they're better meal size portions. Go ahead.
All right, so the next part, we gotta get the loin separated from the belly. And to do that, we're gonna need the saw again. But first, I'm gonna again score the meat so I kind of know where my cut wants to be. And again, there's butchers online that do this way better than I do. And they're how I figured this out, just watching their videos and then learning by doing, because even watching the video 100 times does not make you an expert at it. But you want about 2 fingers off the top ribs here. That's where you're gonna come across with your blade, your saw. So I'm gonna reverse size with you. So 2 fingers there. So that's about where I want my cut to be, right there. So now you're gonna line it up with the back here, and we're just gonna come right across to about that point. And you can go ahead and cut through this with the knife, because again, you don't need to cut through meat with saw. So the bone starts there, that's where the last rib is, and this is the first rib. Okay, so again, we're gonna split the loin from the belly. The belly is where your bacon would be. Again, this is the bacon side, but again, it's so fatty and there's such a thin piece of meat there for this particular pig that we're just gonna scrap that in the sausage. But we wanna separate the loin out because this is where all your pork chops are. Your tenderloin's up under here, we're gonna get that out later as well. But to do that, we want to separate the ribs, or separate it at the ribs. So we've scored it, we know where we want to cut, and then we're going to come across with the saw and start at the back actually. Find that a little easier. So the next step for this side would be to cut these ribs out. So we're going to cut the ribs out, put those aside, those make spare ribs, and then we'll clean up some of the fat and we'll take all the belly meat here, the little bit that's here, and we'll throw it into the sausage pile. So we've got our loin trimmed up, took all the fat off. You can see here, this is where we split the pig. So you got baby back ribs, or you can keep these and cut them up into pork chops with bone in, which is what we're gonna do. So I gotta take the tenderloin out, that's under here, this piece of meat. So I'm gonna take that out first, that piece right there. It's not very big, it's just underneath here on the inside. But then we'll take this and we'll start chopping up these ribs into pork chops, and we'll do bone in. So one thing you'll learn if you start butchering your own animals is that you normally can use a finger to naturally feel the muscle lines and separate them that way. And then you just kind of got to peel back away from there. So on the inside of the ribs behind this tenderloin, I'm just going to kind of peel like I'm filleting a fish. And this is the same way we take the ribs out of the other underbelly side as well. You just kind of peel it back. That way you leave as little meat as possible on the bone. So that's our tenderloin. We'll just clean it up a little bit. So that'll be sausage. So again, not very big on these pigs, but it's a good piece of meat, very tender. There we go. I went ahead and trimmed most of the fat off the back side. This would have been the back fat, so it's very thick, and you want to get rid of most of that. So we try and keep it pretty thin. We might clean it up a little bit more after we cut it up in the pork chops, but flip it over again here. So this is the front and this is the rear. So this is basically the tailbone at this end. This is the front that we cut the front shoulders off. And now what we're gonna do is we're gonna cut in between the ribs and make pork chops. We're gonna do bone-in pork chops because of a few reasons. One, it gives us a little bit more meat. These pigs aren't extremely large, so we want a little bit bigger pork chop, so we're gonna do bone-in. And also it is faster, we don't have to cut the ribs out. Cutting the ribs out would give you this section of ribs, would be baby back ribs. But again, on this pig, they're only 3-4 inches long, they're pretty small. So we're gonna leave the bones in and just have a little bit bigger pork chop. And yeah, so let's go ahead and get started here. All right, so I flipped it around just because I'm right-handed and I wanna work with my saw on my right hand. So what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna go ahead and find the joints in between each rib. These little white strips here will kind of indicate where that is. And you can kind of just crack that open just a little bit with a nice thick knife. And that's where you're gonna make your cuts. So we'll just go down that much for now, that's enough. Now, if it's not too thick, you could crack it with your knife, but that's pretty hard. It gets a little easier as you get further down, the bones get thinner. But I've got a nice bone saw, so I'm just gonna go ahead and use the bone saw. And I use a paper towel just to keep it still because it's greasy from the fat. So you just cut through the bone. Once you break through the bone, you don't want to keep cutting the meat with the saw. Then you pick up your bigger knife and you go down through again. And we're still way up front, so there's a little bit more bone on the bottom of this one. And usually you can break that with your knife. So the front one or two normally don't look the greatest. We'll trim those out. But now that we're getting, you'll see the pork chop there. So that one we might keep. You could also throw it in the sausage if you wanted to. It just depends. Oh, yeah, that's good. And you can tell pretty quick once you're through the bone, you know the difference between bone and meat. There's a nice pork chop. So you can still see there's a bit of fat there. These pigs are very fatty, so we can trim that off if we want or leave it, but it'll get less and less as we go further down. All right, so we're down now to the tailbone area, the very end of the loin. So this side would have been the ham over here. This was the pork chops we just stacked and cut. So this part gets a little more difficult. The bone's no longer straight, it curves, and the meat kind of gets thicker in certain spots here, and the bottom is all good. So you could do a good bone-in roast here and just leave it as it is, or you could debone it and have a boneless roast, but it's all very good tender meat. So I'm not sure what we'll do yet. We'll decide here in a minute whether we want to debone it or not, but it's a good chunk of meat for a roast. All right, so now we're gonna clean these up a little bit, just rinse off any of the bone fragments here. You can see little tiny bone fragments. We want to just rinse that stuff off, wipe it down. We might trim a little bit to get some of this fat cleaned up. But then what we'll do is we'll take this, we'll put it on a cookie sheet on parchment paper, and we'll freeze them like that so they're frozen individually. Then we'll throw them in a gallon Ziploc bag. And the convenience of that is taking them out as you need them. You can take 1, 2, 10 out, it doesn't matter. You take as many as you need to, or as little. And so that's good. And that's pretty much gonna wrap it up for today. Thanks for watching, and stay tuned. We'll have another video showing you guys how we do our sausage, and we grind up all our sausage meat and trimmings, how we do our lard as well. We'll also show you guys how we do our hams, which get brined for 6 to 10 days depending on the size of the ham, and then we smoke those. So we'll have a video showing you that as well.